Director, this past Sunday, Mr. Cummings, ranking member on the Oversight Committee, said based on everything he's seen regarding the IRS case, based on everything he's seen, the case is solved. Is Mr. Cummings accurate in his assessment?
Could you repeat that if you would?
Based on everything I've seen, quoting Mr. Cummings, the case is solved. This is regarding the IRS scandal.
Which case?
The IRS scandal.
The IRS case?
Yeah.
You know, the IRS case is currently under investigation, and basically it's just started.
Yeah. What can you tell us? I mean, you started a month ago. What can you tell us about this? Have you found have you found the now infamous 2 rogue agents? Have you discovered who those people are?
Needless to say, because it's under investigation, I can't give out any of the
Can you tell me some basics? Can you tell me how many agents, investigators you've assigned to the case?
May be able to do that, but I'd have to get back to you.
Can you tell me who the lead investigator is?
Off the top of my head, no.
This is the most important issue in front of the country the last 6 weeks. You don't know who's heading up the case? Who the lead investigator is?
At this juncture, no, I do not know who the.
Can you get that information to us? We'd like to know. We'd like to know how many people you've assigned to look into this situation.
I have not had a recent briefing on it. I had a briefing on it when we first initiated it, but I have not had a recent briefing as to where we are.
So you don't know who's leading the case?
I do not know who is the lead agent.
Do you know if you've talked to any of the victims? Have you talked to any of the groups who were targeted by their government? Have you met with any of the Tea Party folks since May 14th, 2013?
I don't know what the status of the interviews are by the team that's on it.
Would you expect that that's been done?
Certainly at some point in time in the course of the investigation will be done, but generally at the outside of the investigation you get the documents so that you can have a real...
But don't you normally talk to the victims?
I do not know specifically what is happening.
In your extensive record and history and investigative work, don't you typically talk to the victim? It's a criminal investigation. Don't you typically talk to the victims pretty soon?
Absolutely. I'm sure it will happen.
So did the FBI contact any of these same victims? Were they contacted by the FBI prior to the investigation when these same groups were applying for tax-exempt status? Did the FBI pay some of these individuals a visit?
I do not know.
Pardon?
I do not know.
You don't know?
I do not know.
Some of them testified that they were paid a visit by the FBI. Specifically, Catherine Engelbrecht in Texas said she was visited by the FBI. She was head of True the Vote. Is that true or not?
Do not know.
You do not know. Okay. If the FBI did contact people involved in the IRS scandal, victims groups, prior to the investigation when they were applying for tax-exempt status, why was that the case? Why would you be looking into it? And was there possibly coordination with the IRS in why you targeted them?
You're asking me details about the investigation. I'd be happy to get back.
I'm not asking you details about the investigation. I'm saying why were people targeted before the investigation started? Why were they contacted by the FBI? People who are now part of Tea Party groups who were targeted by the IRS.
You're asking questions about details of the investigation. I'd be happy to take
that. Is not a detail about the investigation. That took place prior to the investigation started.
May I please finish? You're asking detailed questions about the investigation. I'd be happy to get back to you and answer those questions that I can, understanding.
I'm asking basic questions about the investigation, like who's heading it up, and you can't tell me that. Can you get back to me on any group who was targeted by the IRS who the FBI visited with prior to the investigation starting, while they were applying for tax? That would be important information for this committee to have. Can you...
Mr. Poe for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm way over here, Director. I want to talk about a constituent from Houston, Texas, named Catherine Engelbrecht. In July of 2010, she and her husband, business owners, started 2 groups, a nonprofit, hoping to be a nonprofit group, True the Vote and King Street Patriots. December of 2010, the FBI Domestic Terrorism Unit inquired about their attendees. January of 2011, the FBI Domestic Terrorism Unit inquired about one of their attendees. January of 2011, Catherine Engelbrecht Enterprises were audited for 2008 and 2009. January of 2011, True the Vote, IRS questions their nonprofit application. That was the first round. March of 2011, the IRS questions, May of 2011, King Street Patriots were visited by members of King Street Patriots went to the FBI after their request about questions, how are they doing, anything you need to tell us or report. October of 2011, True the Vote, IRS questions their application. They wanted to know who their Facebook people were, all of their tweets, who they were tweeting to, personal knowledge about their family, every place they'd ever spoken, this is Catherine, every place she intends to speak, who they were speaking to, the names of the participants, the copies of transcripts, everywhere they intended to speak, and they asked them about 300 questions, including who's doing the training, what are the backgrounds of the trainers, and then they asked who your lawyers were and the background of the lawyers that represented them and the qualification of the lawyers, etc. I will furnish you the 300 questions, Mr. Director. 3 more visits by mail, or by rather phone, by the FBI, June, November, and December to the King Street Patriots. And then the IRS in February of 2012 questions the nonprofit status again of the True the Vote. This was the 3rd round. At that time, I sent your office, the Department of Justice, an inquiry saying, is this group, these people, under investigation for criminal offenses? I get a letter back from the Justice Department that says they're not under criminal investigation. But it continues. They were visited later by the ATF. They were visited by OSHA. They were visited by TCEQ. They were visited again by the IRS, 4th round. All of these IRS questions are coming from Cincinnati, and they get finally another question from the IRS from Utah. That was in March of this year. April of this year, here comes the ATF again, another unscheduled visit to their business. Now, I've read the civil rights law. It's important, and you have a civil rights division in the FBI to enforce civil rights violations. The way I understand the law, you can't target a certain group because of their beliefs. The IRS has already said some people in the IRS has already targeted certain Tea Party groups because they were Tea Party groups. My question, without going into details, my questions in a hypothetical case, IRS targeting groups with this information that you have seen there inquired about, ironically, 4 different agencies all inquiring about a group for over several years. Does that appear to be something that if a complaint was filed with the FBI would investigate a civil rights violation?
Sir, I think that's part of would be part of the ongoing activation, or not, the ongoing investigation, I should say, of the circumstances relating to the IRS. That was initiated a number of weeks ago. My expectation is this would be a piece of that investigation. You also indicate, though, that FBI agents visited these individuals. I will go back and look at the predication for that particular visit ourselves to follow up on that aspect of it to the extent that these persons were paid business by the Bureau.
Thank you, Mr. Director. I yield back.